What happens when a black family's peaceful vacation turns into a nightmare of racist police arrests, only to reveal that the father is an FBI agent determined to fight back? Marcus Bryant had always been a man who believed in the law, believed in justice, truth, and the power of doing what was right, even when it wasn't easy. As a senior FBI officer who had served in counterterrorism units, undercover operations, and some of the most dangerous assignments in the country, he had seen the best and worst sides of America. He had survived shootouts, bomb threats, and terrorist plots. But despite all that, the one thing that scared him the most wasn't a criminal on the run or a dangerous mission. It was what could happen to his black family in the wrong place at the wrong time, after years of non-stop work. Marcus decided it was finally time to take a break. His wife, Layla, had been asking for a vacation for over a year. Their two children, 17-year-old Jaden and 14-year-old Amara, had grown tired of hearing their father say, maybe next month. So when Marcus finally booked a week-long family, a trip to the quiet coastal town of Belaford in Georgia, everyone was thrilled. It was going to be a simple vacation beach walks, family picnics, maybe some fishing. No FBI phone calls, no late-night briefings, just time together. On the first day of their trip, they arrived at the rental house, a beautiful white cottage near the beach, with big windows and a porch swing. The owner, a polite older lady, handed over the keys and gave them a quick tour. "Y'all have a good stay now," she said with a warm smile. But Marcus could feel her eyes watching them as they pulled their bags from the trunk. Maybe he was imagining it, but something about the way she looked at his family made him pause. Still, he brushed it off. He didn't want to start the trip with suspicion. This was about family, fun, and relaxation. The first 2 days were everything they had hoped for. The sun was shining, the beach was peaceful, and they even found a small diner that served the best shrimp and grits they had ever tasted. Jaden brought his camera and was taking pictures of everything: birds, sunsets, funny signs. Amara spent most of her time writing in her journal and collecting seashells. Layla was finally smiling again, her worries melting away under the sun. But even during those quiet, happy moments, Marcus couldn't ignore the little signs. At the diner, the waitress took forever to take their order. Okay. Even though the restaurant was nearly empty. At the grocery store, people stared as they walked by. An older man frowned when Jaden laughed too loud in the parking lot. A woman at the gas station clutched her purse tighter as Layla walked past. Small things, nothing huge, nothing they could prove. But they were their silent signals, the kind Marcus had learned to read long ago. One night, as they sat on the porch listening to the waves, Marcus gently brought it up. "Do you feel it?" he asked Layla. She looked at him, already knowing. What he meant? "Yeah. I've been feeling it since we got here." "It's subtle," he said. "But it's there." Layla nodded. "We'll be careful. Let's just enjoy this time." He agreed, even though something in his gut told him to stay alert the next day. They decided to have a picnic at Lake Fern, a nearby park known for its quiet trails and beautiful lake views. Jaden was excited to shoot some video for a school project, and Amara wanted to paint the scenery. They packed sandwiches, lemonades, snacks, and a blanket. Jaden brought his camera, tripod, and a small drone. Marcus loaded everything into the back of their SUV, while Layla double-checked the directions. The drive to the park was peaceful. Pine trees lined both sides of the road, and the sky was a soft shade of blue. The park was mostly empty when they arrived, just a few families scattered around fishing or feeding ducks. Marcus parked under a large tree near the trail entrance. They began unpacking the car, Layla with the picnic basket, Amara carrying her art supplies, and Jaden carefully setting up his tripod to film the lake. Marcus had just finished setting the picnic blanket when he noticed a white woman standing near a parked car a few yards away. She was staring directly at them, talking on her phone. At first, he thought nothing of it. Maybe she was calling a friend or checking on someone, but her eyes never left them. And when she pointed her finger in their direction, Marcus's body tensed. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. He turned toward his son. "Hey, Jaden, let's keep the drone grounded for now." Jaden looked confused but nodded, folding the small quadcopter back into its case. Minutes later, Marcus heard the sound of sirens in the distance. His stomach sank. No, not here. Not now. Within moments, 2 police SUVs and a patrol car came speeding. Into the park, they screeched to a stop near the family. The doors flew open, and 4 officers jumped out with their hands on their weapons. Hands where I can see them. Now, one officer shouted. Marcus's training kicked in. He raised his hands immediately and calmly told his family, do exactly what they say. Don't move fast. Stay calm. Jaden looked terrified. Amara froze, clutching her sketchbook. Layla held up her hands and shouted, what is going on? Don't move, ma'am. Everyone on the ground, now. Marcus tried to speak. A federal officer let me show you my ID. Shut up and get on the ground, an officer screamed, running toward him. I am a federal agent with the FBI, Marcus repeated, his voice steady. Please allow me to identify myself. But it was no use. One officer tackled Marcus to the ground, his knee pressing into his back as he handcuffed him. Another officer pulled Layla's hands behind her back and cuffed her too. Jaden, confused and scared, was shoved to the ground. Amara screamed as 2 officers stood over her, shouting orders. People in the park began to gather. Some took out their phones and started recording. Why are you doing this? Layla cried out. We didn't do anything. Marcus couldn't move. His face was pressed against the grass. His FBI badge was in his pocket, but they didn't care. He didn't ask questions. They didn't check IDs. All they saw was a black family in a white town. That was enough. As he lay there, his mind raced. He had survived the most dangerous missions in his career, but this was something different. This was what he feared most, not being a black man working inside the system, but being a black father outside of it. Powerless, mistreated, humiliated, and nothing he had done, no medal, no badge, no rank, could stop it. The officers searched their car without permission. They looked through bags, tossed aside the food, and even opened the drone case. One officer held up the tripod. Ma'am said you had a rifle, he muttered. That's a camera stand, Jaden whispered, his voice trembling. Eventually, when nothing illegal was found, they loaded the family into the back of 2 patrol cars and drove them to the station. Marcus kept asking for a supervisor, kept repeating his FBI status. No one listened. As the patrol car drove away, Jaden looked out the window, tears in his eyes. Amara sat in silence, her sketchbook still clutched in her hands. Layla leaned her head back, stunned. Marcus sat with his jaw clenched, his mind racing. He had faced enemies with weapons and evil in their hearts, but this wasn't an enemy across the ocean. This was the system he had served, the same system that saw him as a threat when he wasn't wearing his badge, and that was only the beginning. The inside of the police car was cold and silent. Marcus sat stiffly in the back seat, his wrists tight in handcuffs. The metal dug into his skin, but he didn't complain. He didn't speak at all. He just kept breathing, deeply and slowly, because he knew that one wrong word, one sudden move, could make things even worse. The younger officer driving the car glanced at him through the rearview mirror now and then, but said nothing. His eyes showed something between guilt and fear, but he stayed quiet. Maybe he had realized they had made a mistake. Maybe he hadn't. It didn't matter to Marcus. What mattered was his family. He didn't know what was happening to Layla, Jaden, or Amara. They were in another car. He had seen them being pushed inside roughly. Jaden had been crying. Amara looked like she couldn't even understand what was going on. Layla had been shouting at the officers, demanding to know the reason for their arrest, but no one had answered her. No one cared. In that moment, they weren't a family on vacation. They weren't people. They were suspects, suspicious, dangerous, guilty, simply because of how they looked. As the car pulled into the parking lot of the small-town police station, Marquis straightened his shoulders. He knew this building. It's not this exact one, but many. Like it, he had trained in them, worked with officers in dozens of stations just like this. He had given lectures to law enforcement groups, taught de-escalation techniques, and led workshops on handling bias. And now, here he was, being dragged inside like a criminal. The officers led him through a side door and into a holding area. No one had taken his ID. No one had checked his name. They hadn't even asked where he was from. They just threw him into a cell like he was no one. He looked around the room. Gray walls, a metal bench, a toilet in the corner. Cold air from the ceiling vent buzzed softly above his head. His hands still cuffed behind his back, he sat down slowly. He could feel the rage building in his chest, but he pushed it down. It was not the time to lose control. He needed to think. He took a deep breath and called out, "I need to speak to the officer in charge. I am a federal agent." No reply. "I am an FBI officer. I need to speak to your chief immediately." Still no response. After what felt like forever, a young officer appeared at the door and opened the slot. "You'll have your chance to talk. Stay quiet," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Marcus stayed calm. "I'd like to make my phone." "Call later," the officer snapped and walked away. Marcus clenched his fists. He didn't want to pull rank. He never liked using his badge as a weapon, but this situation had gone too far. If they wouldn't listen to him, he needed someone. Who would in the other part of the station? Layla sat in a separate holding room. Her hands were shaking. Her hair was messy, her cheeks wet from crying. She had begged the officers to let her check on her daughter, but they ignored her. They hadn't told her why they were arrested or what they were being charged with. Time, she asked, they just said, "Stay quiet, you'll find out soon." She had never felt so powerless in her life. Her husband worked for the government. Her family paid taxes, followed the law, stayed out of trouble. And yet here they were, treated like criminals. Jaden sat in a cold interview room, still handcuffed. A bulky officer was questioning him in a cold voice. "Where are you from?" "Florida," Jaden whispered. "What were you doing in the park?" "Just taking pictures." "For school? What's in your bag? Camera, books, snacks? You carrying anything illegal?" "No, sir." The officer stared at him for a long time, then walked out. Jaden looked at the mirror on the wall. He knew it was 2A glass. Maybe his parents were on the other side. Maybe no one was watching at all. He felt scared, but more than that, he felt confused. He had seen this kind of thing on the news, in movies. He never thought it would happen to him. He hadn't done anything wrong, yet here he was, treated like a threat. Amara, just 14, was the most frightened. She had never been inside a police station before. She sat alone in a room with a female officer who didn't say much, just watched her silently.
Amara
Kept replaying everything in her head, the shouting, the guns, the cuffs, the way people looked at them. She hugged her knees and tried not to cry, but the tears came anyway. Back in his cell, Marcus was finally allowed a phone call. A different officer, one who seemed a bit more nervous, handed him a phone. "Make it quick," the man said, eyes flicking down to Marcus's cuffs. Marcus didn't waste time. He called someone he trusted, Special Agent Jeff Warner, a senior FBI supervisor in Atlanta. Jeff picked up after 2 rings. "Warner." "Jeff." "It's Marcus Bryant." There was a short silence. "Marcus, where are you calling from?" "In custody? Small town near Belaford. My family and I were arrested at a park. No reason, no explanation." "What?" Jeff's voice changed instantly. "You're kidding, I wish I was." "They refused to look at my ID," said a woman claimed. "We had weapons." "It was a tripod. They handcuffed my wife and kids." "I need help." "Say no more. I'm on it," Jeff said, voice sharp and serious. "I'll call the regional office and local PD. Give me 30 minutes. Thank you." The call ended. Handed back the phone and sat down again. He knew Jeff would take action. Jeff was white, yes, but he was also someone who had always had Marcus's back. He had been one of the few people in the bureau who understood what it meant to be black. In law enforcement, he wouldn't let this slide. Exactly 28 minutes later, the atmosphere in the station changed. Marcus heard voices outside his cell. Firm voices. Angry voices. The door opened and in walked a tall man in a suit agent. Warner, behind. Him were 2 other federal agents and the local police chief who looked pale and shocked. "Marcus, Jeff said, nodding. "We've got it from here." Marcus stood up. The cuffs were still on. "Take those off him," Jeff snapped. The young officer from before rushed forward and fumbled with the keys. I didn't know you didn't bother to ask." Jeff interrupted coldly, as soon as the cuffs were off. Marcus rolled his wrists and looked directly at the police chief. "Where's my family?" he asked. "We're bringing them out now," the chief stammered. A few minutes later, Layla was led into the room, followed by Jaden and Amara. All of them looked tired, shaken, and confused. When they saw Marcus, they rushed to him. Layla hugged him tightly, burying her face in his shoulder. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I thought something would happen to you." "We're okay," he said softly. "We're together." Jeff turned to the police chief. "I want every body cam recording from the arrest, every patrol car video. I want the name of the woman who made the false report. I want a written explanation as to why my agent and his family were treated." "This way?" The chief nodded quickly. "Yes. Yes, sir. Absolutely." Jeff turned to Marcus. "You want to press charges?" Marcus looked at his family. Jaden's eyes were red. Mara looked broken. Layla was trembling. He thought of all the other families who had gone through this, who didn't have someone like Jeff to call, who didn't have a badge to flash, who were left to fight alone. "I want the truth to come out," he said. "Every part of it." That night they returned to their rental house. No one said much. They ate quietly, sitting around the dinner table. The joy of the vacation was gone. The laughter, the plans, the peace had all disappeared in a moment. Later, Marcus sat outside on the porch alone, looked up at the stars, his hands folded in his lap. He thought about everything that had happened. He thought about the moment the officer shouted at him, the moment they ignored his words, the way they treated his children. He thought about the system he had sworn to protect, and he wondered how many more families would suffer before things really changed. Inside the house, Amara picked up her sketchbook. Her hand still shook a little, but she began to draw anyway. She didn't want to forget what had happened, not because it was beautiful, but because it was real and it needed to be told. The morning after they returned from the police station, the Bryant family sat around the breakfast table, but no one was eating. The eggs on their plates had gone cold. The toast was untouched. The room was silent, except for the sound of waves, crashing faintly in the distance. It was supposed to be a peaceful vacation. Instead, it had become a nightmare none of them could forget. Marcus stared at his coffee, his thoughts far away. He was trying to process everything, but his mind was moving too fast. His training had taught him to stay calm in crises, to observe, analyze, and act without emotion. But what had happened to his family was different. This wasn't a mission. This was personal. Layla sat next to him, holding her mug with both hands. Her eyes were tired, her face pale. She hadn't slept properly. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her husband on the ground, her children crying, the police yelling. She felt like she had failed to protect her family, even though there was nothing more she could have done. Jaden sat across the table, quietly scrolling through his phone. His camera had been damaged when the officers threw it into a plastic evidence bag. He had already found a video someone had posted on social media. It showed part of their arrest from a distance. The caption said, "Black family arrested for having a picnic in Belaford." There were hundreds of comments, some in support, some filled with racism and hate. He turned off his phone and shoved it into his pocket. His stomach felt sick. Amara was drawing in her sketchbook, the way she always did when she was upset. She didn't speak, but her hand moved quickly across the page, forming the shapes of angry faces, flashing lights, and a broken tripod. She didn't want to cry in front of her family again. She wanted to be strong, but she didn't know how. Suddenly, the silence broke with the sound of Marcus's phone ringing. He stood up quickly and walked out to the porch before answering. It was Jeff Warner. "We've got a problem," Jeff said. Marcus's grip on the phone tightened. "What kind?" "The body cam footage from the arrest is worse than we thought. The officers never once asked for your name or ID. They pulled weapons on your son. One officer referred to your family as suspicious subjects. It's all recorded." Marcus closed his eyes for a second, then opened them slowly. You sure? Yes, Jeff replied. We have the footage. It's already with Internal Affairs. The local news just got wind of the story. I never wanted this to go public, Marcus said quietly. I know, but it's already out there. The town's mayor is asking questions. The police chief is panicking. The officers involved are being questioned this morning. Have they been suspended? 2 of them, yes. The others are under review. The 911 caller, she's a local woman. Her name is Judith Collins. She claimed you were acting like gang members and said she saw what looked like weapons. Marcus shook his head. Unbelievable. There's more, Jeff said. Our office in Atlanta is going to release a statement. Before that, the Bureau wants to talk to you. They're sending someone from D.C. Marcus rubbed his temples. They want me to keep quiet, don't they? Jeff paused. They want to protect the Bureau's image. You know how this goes, Marcus nodded. He knew all too well. The same system he worked for was now telling him to be silent for the sake of appearances. That evening, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. A man in a gray suit stepped out and walked to the door. Marcus opened it, recognizing the face immediately. Deputy Director Michael Hardin. He wasn't just from the Bureau. He was one of the top men in D.C., someone who rarely left headquarters, unless something serious was going on. Agent Bryant, Hardin said, shaking his hand firmly. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Me too, sir, Marcus replied. They sat down in the living room. Layla stayed nearby, listening, while the kids remained in their rooms. Hardin leaned forward. I saw the footage. I'm furious. This should have never happened. But we need to manage this carefully. The media is watching. Congress might get involved. The Bureau is under pressure. Marcus stared at him. What does that mean? You want me to keep my mouth shut? I'm asking you to think long term, Hardin said. You've built an incredible career. You've earned respect. But if this turns into a media circus, it could hurt your future in the bureaus. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. I wasn't looking for attention. I just wanted to take my family on vacation, wanted them to feel safe in their own country. Hardin sighed. I know. And I believe you. That's why I'm here. You're not alone in this. But we need to be strategic. Let the internal process work. File your complaint. We'll push for discipline, but don't go public. Layla, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. With all due respect, Agent Hardin, the public already saw us lying in the dirt. Our children were traumatized. We didn't go looking for the media, they found us. Hardin nodded slowly. I understand. I just want you both to know the risks. After he left, Marcus sat on the porch again, looking out at the dark sky. Jaden joined him and sat quietly. You okay, son? Marcus asked. Jaden shrugged. I don't know. I keep thinking.
Oh.
What if you weren't FBI? What if you were just a regular dad? Marcus looked at him. Then things might have ended. Very differently. Jaden nodded. That's what scares me. The next morning, Amara asked if she could go back to the park where everything happened. Layla hesitated, but Marcus agreed. We'll go together, he said. They drove back to Lake Fern. The sun was shining just like the day they were arrested. Families were walking, people were fishing, and the air was calm. But to them, everything looked different. The same ground that once held a peaceful picnic now held painful memories. Amara walked to the spot where her sketchbook had fallen. She knelt down and picked up a small flower, pressing it between the pages of her new journal. I'm not going to forget this, she said softly. You shouldn't, Marcus replied, but you can turn it into something stronger. When they got home, Marcus began writing. Not a complaint form, not a report. He started writing everything. His memories, his feelings, the moment the guns were drawn. The way the officers looked at his family, he poured it all onto the page. It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. Layla joined him. She started journaling, too. Jaden posted a photo online, a picture of the empty park. The caption simple. We were just trying to have lunch. The post went viral in ours. The phone started ringing again. Journalists, civil rights groups, even a local congresswoman. Everyone wanted to hear the story. Some offered support. Others questioned it. But Marcus didn't speak to the press. Not yet. One night, Jeff called again. "Things are moving fast," he said. "The state is opening an investigation into the department. That woman who called 911, turns out she's made 5 other similar calls over the past 2 years. Always about black people," typical Marcus muttered. "The mayor wants to meet with you. She's publicly apologized and is trying to make things right." Marcus didn't know if he wanted an apology. What he wanted was change that weekend. Marcus got a letter from a young black police recruit who had seen the story online. It said, "Sir, I joined law enforcement because of people like you. Please don't stop fighting from the inside. We need you." Marcus read it 3 times. Reminded him why he joined the Bureau in the first place, to protect people, to bring justice. But now he realized justice wasn't only about catching criminals. It was about standing up when the system got it wrong. He called Jeff. "I'm going to speak," he said. "You sure?" "Yes. I won't say anything that puts the Bureau in trouble, but I'm not going to be silent. My children saw what happened. They need to know their father didn't just take it and move on." When he told his family, they supported him. "I'm proud of you," Layla said. "We all are." That night, Marcus sat at the computer and started writing again. This time it was a statement. Clear, honest, powerful. He didn't attack anyone. He didn't use angry words. He just told the truth. And sometimes the truth is enough to shake the world. Back at home in Florida, the Bryant family tried to return to their normal life. The vacation was over, but the memory of what happened during those few days in Belaford was still fresh in all their minds. The peaceful rhythm of daily life was broken. Every small thing reminded them of that day, the sound of police sirens, the sight of parks, even the smell of barbecue from a picnic nearby. Nothing felt the same anymore. Marcus went back to work at the FBI office, but he was not the same man who had left for vacation. He walked through the hallways, greeted colleagues, sat in meetings, and completed reports, but inside, he carried the weight of something deep and painful. He didn't tell many people about what happened. A few of his close coworkers had read about it online or seen it on the news, but most just nodded politely and acted like nothing had happened. That silence hurt more than he expected. His badge still opened doors. His title still earned him respect. But now he knew that the moment he stepped out of his professional identity, the world treated him and his family like they were nothing more than a threat. It was a harsh truth. It didn't go away just because he wore a suit and carried a badge. Layla was struggling too. She tried to go back to her normal routine, managing the household, running her online business, helping the kids, but her mind kept returning to that awful day. At night, she couldn't sleep properly. Every time she closed her eyes, she remembered the sound of her children crying, her husband on the ground, and the shouting of the officers. One morning, as she was folding laundry, Amara came into the room holding her sketchbook. She showed her mother a drawing she had made. It showed a group of people sitting peacefully on a picnic blanket, while a shadowy figure with a phone hid behind a tree. In the background, police cars arrived with flashing lights. Layla stared at the drawing for a long time. Then she hugged Amara tightly. "Baby, what you drew is powerful," she whispered. "I don't want to forget what happened," Amara said softly. "I want people to see it." Jaden, on the other hand, became more quiet than usual. He had always been full of energy, talking about photography, making jokes, asking questions. But now he stayed in his room a lot. He deleted his social media apps and refused to show anyone the video clips he had taken from that day. When Marcus knocked on his door one evening, Jaden didn't respond at first. "Can I come in?" Marcus asked gently. "Yeah," Jaden replied. After a moment, Marcus entered the room and saw his son sitting at his desk, staring at a blank screen. "I just wanted to check on you," Marcus said. "I'm fine," Jaden mumbled. "You don't look fine." Jaden turned around slowly. "How do you do it, Dad? How do you just go back to work? Smile at people. Pretend like everything's normal?" Marcus sat down beside him. "It's not easy. Some days it feels fake, like I'm pretending. But I try to hold on to the bigger picture. I try to remember that if I don't speak up, nothing changes." "But you're part of the system," Jaden said. They respect you. They don't respect people like me. I was just a kid with a camera and they treated me like a criminal. Marcus nodded. That's the hardest part, son, going that. The uniform I wear protects me more than the skin I'm in. But that's exactly why we can't stay silent. A few days later, the family received a letter from the Belaford Police Department. It was an official apology, signed by the police chief and the town's mayor. The letter said the department deeply regretted what happened, that the actions of the officers were being investigated, and that changes would be made. It sounded professional and respectful, but it didn't feel sincere. It's a form letter, Layla said, reading it aloud. They probably sent the same one to 10 other people. They only care because it went viral, Jaden muttered. Amara asked, Are they going to say sorry to us in person? Marcus shook his head. Probably not. That same week, a civil rights group contacted the family. They asked if Marcus would be willing to share his story at a local forum on policing and racial profiling. At first, Marcus hesitated. He didn't want to bring more attention to his family. He didn't want his kids dragged into public debate, but after talking with Layla, he changed his mind. We didn't choose this, Layla said, but maybe we can help someone else who doesn't have a voice. The forum was held at a community center a few miles from their home. It was attended by local leaders, activists, pastors, and people from all backgrounds. Marcus sat on stage with other panelists, a mother, whose son had been wrongfully arrested, a young man who had been stopped by police more than 20 times, and a retired black police captain, when it was Marcus's turn to speak. He stood slowly and looked around the room. I've served this country for over 20 years, he began. I've stopped threats. I've saved lives. But nothing in my career prepared me for what happened to my family that day. He spoke plainly. He didn't use dramatic words. He told the truth. About the fear in his daughter's eyes, about the anger in his son's voice, about the humiliation his wife felt, about how he, an FBI officer, was treated like a criminal without anyone asking a single question. The room was silent as he spoke. Some people nodded, some wiped away tears. Others sat frozen, stunned by the pain in his voice. I don't want revenge, Marcus said. I want accountability. I want change. I want my children to grow up in a country where they're seen as human first, not as suspects. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Not the kind of applause you hear at a concert. It was slow, thoughtful, emotional. People stood up, not because he was a hero, but because they knew he was telling a truth they had felt for years. After the event, several people came up to him. Thank you for speaking, one woman said. We needed to hear that. My brother went through the same thing, a young man told him, but no one believed him because he wasn't an FBI agent. That night, back at home, the family sat around the living room. There was something different in the air. A feeling of strength, of unity. Maybe we should start something, Amara said. Like what? Marcus asked. A group, a project. Something to help other families. Layla smiled. A bad idea. They talked late into the night about creating a foundation, about mentoring other families, about using their story to push for real changes in police training. Jaden said, I still don't trust the system. But maybe we can push it to be better, Marcus agreed. That's what this is about, not just for us. For everyone who's ever been silenced. For the next few weeks, the family worked together on a plan. They started a website to share their experience. Amara posted her artwork. Jaden uploaded his photos. Layla wrote a blog. Marcus posted his full statement from the forum. People from all over the country started reaching out. Some shared their own stories. Others thanked them for speaking up. A few even offered donations to support the cause. It wasn't easy. I still had painful days. They still got hateful messages. But they also saw hope. One day, Marcus received a call from a law school professor who wanted him to speak to her students about bias in law enforcement. Another day, Layla was invited to join a local police advisory board. Amara's drawings were published in a youth magazine. And Jaden? He started working on a short documentary titled, This Could Have Been Worse. Through it all, the Bryant family stayed close. They had been shaken, but not broken. Their trust in the system was damaged. But their belief in each other had grown stronger than ever. They knew the road ahead would be long. Change didn't happen overnight. But they also knew that silence was no longer an option. They had found their voice, and they were going to use it. A black family on vacation, not knowing the father is an FBI officer, explained in simple and interesting English, around 2,500 words. Without any headings, the days turned into weeks, and the Bryant family's story continued to spread beyond their small town. What started as a painful moment of injustice became a powerful example of courage, resilience, and the fight for change. The whole family learned that their voices mattered more than they had ever imagined. Marcus spent many nights reading every message, every email, every comment from people all across the country. Some were heartbreaking stories similar to their families, who had faced unfair treatment, who lived in fear of police rather than trusting them. Others were messages of hope, gratitude, and support. One email came from a woman in Chicago who wrote, "Your story gave me the courage to speak out about what happened to my brother. Thank you for showing me that even people inside the system can stand up." There were messages from students, activists, lawyers, and even some police officers who said they wanted to be part of the change. The family's website grew quickly, with new visitors every day. Amara's artwork showed the emotions of the experience in a way words could not. Her drawings were shared on social media and featured in local newspapers. Jaden's photography and video work were used in presentations about racial profiling and police reform. Layla's blog posts were read by thousands. She wrote about what it felt like to be a mother trying to protect her children in a world that didn't always see them as innocent. She shared advice for other families who might face similar situations, reminding them to stay strong and speak up. Marcus became a speaker at universities and conferences, sharing not just his story, but also his ideas for improving law enforcement training. He talked about the importance of empathy, cultural understanding, and accountability. He also pushed for more black officers and better community policing. Despite the progress, the family also faced challenges. Some days, hateful messages came through, reminding them of the prejudice still deeply rooted in society. Marcus received threats, and the family had to be extra careful with their safety. But they refused to be silenced. One evening, Marcus sat with Layla and their children, reflecting on how far they had come. "Do you think what happened to us really made a difference?" Amara asked quietly. Marcus smiled. "I believe it did. Every time someone reads our story or sees your drawings, they think about these issues differently. Change starts with awareness." Jaden nodded. "I used to feel angry all the time, but now I think we're doing something real. We're turning anger into action." Layla took Marcus's hand, and we're doing it together. Their work attracted the attention of lawmakers. And soon, a group of politicians invited Marcus to testify before a state committee on police reform. He prepared carefully, wanting to speak clearly and honestly. When the day came, he sat in front of the committee and shared not only his family's story, but also detailed suggestions for changes in police training, transparency, and accountability. His testimony was covered by the media and sparked more conversations about racial bias in law enforcement. Some police unions criticized him, but many community leaders praised his courage. Back at home, the family was invited to join a new advisory council, focused on improving relationships between police and minority communities. Marcus and Layla both accepted, knowing it was an opportunity to influence real policies. Meanwhile, Mara's art was displayed in a gallery exhibit about social justice, inspiring young people to express their feelings through creativity. Jaden's documentary was selected for several film festivals, spreading the message to wider audiences. Their story was featured in national magazines and even led to an invitation to speak at a national conference on civil rights. Through it all, the family stayed grounded, remembering the day they were unfairly arrested and how that moment changed their lives forever. One afternoon, as they sat together in their backyard, Marcus looked at his children playing and said, "This story is not just about what happened to us. It's about all the families who face fear and injustice every day. Layla added, and it's about hope that by standing up, we can make things better. Their journey was not just about fighting the past, but building a future where justice was real for everyone. They knew there would always be struggles ahead, but now they faced those challenges with strength and unity, because they were more than victims, they were warriors for change, and their story was just the beginning.